Sailing is the perfect activity for anyone who enjoys outdoor recreation. Sailing can be exciting or relaxing. You can compete in racing or take a leisurely sail with family and friends. It doesn't matter your age or ability. Sailing offers something for everyone. Is sailing for you? The only way you'll know is if you give it a try. Let's take a ride together and experience the thrill of sailing. Welcome aboard. Learning to sail, it's easy. It's a lot of vocabulary and it can be intimidating because it's brand new, but you don't need to be fluent in sailor speak or know how to rig the boat or tie knots to try sailing and see if it might be for you. Many sailing clubs, like mine, offer introductory rides or lessons so you can try sailing even if you are not ready to commit to a Learn to Sail program or join a sailing club. Sailing is probably more affordable than you think, especially when compared with other popular outdoor activities, and especially if you do it the way I do it. My job is to prepare you for your first session on the water. In this video, I'll explain how a sailboat works. We'll talk about wind awareness. I'll cover some basic rules of the road. I'll tell you what to bring. And last but not least, we'll go over some important safety considerations. The goal is for you to have a fun and memorable experience that will motivate you to want to continue sailing, not to overwhelm you with vocabulary and nuances. On day one, it's totally okay if you refer to the front of the boat as the front of the boat or call a rope a rope. Think of your first sailing session as an orientation. We'll focus on the big picture and try not to get lost in too many details. After just one session on a boat, you're going to understand how to sail from point A to point B and stop the boat at the dock. In order to understand how to sail, we have to first understand the boat's relation to the wind. We can sail downwind with the wind pushing against our sails like a parachute, which pushes our boat forward. And we can sail into the wind because our sails are shaped exactly like airplane wings when we look at them from the top down. When sailing into the wind, lift generated from the airflow over the sails works in conjunction with the fins underneath the water to propel the boat forward. The easiest way to understand our boat's relationship to the wind is to think of a clock. We'll assume the wind is always coming from 12 o'clock. If we are sailing at 6 o'clock, we're sailing 180 degrees from the wind. If we're sailing at 9 o'clock or 3 o'clock, we're sailing at 90 degrees across the wind. The boat's relation to the wind is referred to as the point of sail. There are 6 points of sail starting with the no-go zone. I'll go through each one of these one by one and show you some drone footage of each one. The no-go zone is the 90-degree area between 10:30 and 1:30 on the clock. So the closest to the wind we can sail is 45 degrees in either direction. If we sail into this no-go zone, our sails will stop working and the sailboat will slow down and stop. Here's what it looks like. When sailing as close to the wind as possible at 10:30 or 1:30 on the clock, this point of sail is called close hauled because our sails are pulled in tightly and we're essentially hauling them in as close to the boat as possible to generate the most lift and sail as high into the wind as possible. When sailing upwind, we rely on the lift created from the sail. Smooth airflow over both sides of the sail is optimal. If our sails start to flap or luff, we must trim our sails in or ease our sails out so that we can regain smooth airflow over both sides of the sail. To help visualize this airflow and help guide our adjustments, we place pieces of yarn or cloth to guide our steering. These pieces of cloth are called telltales. We want both the inside and outside telltales both flowing straight back to ensure there is smooth airflow over both sides of the sail. If the telltale on the outside of the sail is not flowing straight back, we push the tiller out or ease the sails out to improve the airflow. If the inner telltale is not flowing straight back, we can pull the tiller in or trim our sails in to improve the airflow. To help you remember this trick, when sailing into the wind, we move our tiller and adjust our sails towards the tattling telltale. Let's get back to the points of sail. If we steer downwind slightly from sailing close hauled, we are reaching across the wind but are still sailing upwind. This point of sail between 10:30 and 9 o'clock is a close reach. Notice that our sails are eased slightly from the close hauled position so there is smooth airflow around both sides of the sail. If we steer down to 9 o'clock, we are sailing at 90 degrees from the wind. This point of sail is a beam reach. A beam reach is considered the point of sail where the most lift is generated with the least amount of drag, which happens to be the fastest point of sail. When sailing on a beam reach, our sails are trimmed in halfway or eased out halfway, depending on how you like to look at things. If we steer downwind from a beam reach below that 9 o'clock position, we're now sailing on a broad reach. The broad reach point of sail is anywhere between 9 o'clock and 6 o'clock and will make sure our boom is perpendicular to the wind. Once we steer down past 9 o'clock, we transition from lift mode or pull mode to push mode. Instead of the wind flowing around both sides of our sails and adjusting our sails to the telltales, we will now adjust our sails so our boom, that spar at the bottom of the mainsail, is always perpendicular to the wind so we can get the best push from the wind. Many boats have helpful wind vane indicators on top of their mast or pieces of yarn or cassette tape tied to the shrouds, which are those wires that hold up the mast. These indicators help gauge the wind direction so you can more easily adjust the boom so it's perpendicular to the wind. When we're sailing dead downwind at 6 o'clock from the wind, we are sailing on a run. The front sail will be blocked by the mainsail unless we bring it through to the other side of the boat. We want the wind to push both sails to give us the best possible push. This is referred to as wing on wing. Understanding the points of sail is the primary learning objective for your first on the water lesson. There's only 6 of them, so it shouldn't be too overwhelming. If you start to get overwhelmed with vocabulary and nuances, just try and keep it simple. Find the wind, determine your point of sail, and make sure the sails are adjusted accordingly. I promise you, all the rest of the details will come together so much easier with a solid understanding of the points of sail. And it's totally okay if you don't remember the name of each point of sail, so long as you understand that you stop the boat by turning it into the wind, that we trim our sails in and adjust to the telltales when we're sailing upwind, and that our sails are eased out and we keep our boom perpendicular to the wind when sailing downwind. Look closely at this graphic with all the points of sail. Notice how the sails are eased out further and further the lower on the clock we sail, and how the sails are trimmed in tighter and tighter the higher on the clock we sail. It's a rather easy puzzle to solve if we don't make it unnecessarily complicated. To apply our newly acquired points of sail knowledge, we need to be able to locate the wind. Wind awareness and knowing where the wind is coming from at all times comes naturally to experienced sailors. Throughout the first sailing session, I'm asking the first-time sailor to point at the wind for me. Where is the wind coming from? That question can be answered by looking at flags, at wind vanes on top of masts, observing windsocks, the bending of the trees, telltales on the sides of shrouds, and even ripples on the water. At the dock, we can figure the wind direction based on which way the wind is pushing the boats off the dock. Out on the water, because we understand the points of sail and how to adjust our sails, we can look at other sailboats and the position of their sails to derive the wind direction. When launching the boat, I'll ask you to point to the wind so we can manage the boat so the wind is pushing the boat away from the seawall or the dock. Before we hoist the sails, I'll ask you to point to the wind so we can make sure the wind direction hasn't changed so the wind doesn't push our boat back into the dock after we raise our sails. Before we push off the dock, I'll ask you to point to the wind because we'll want to make sure we do not sail into the no-go zone. We need boat speed and water flow over our rudder in order to steer our boat. If we get pushed into the no-go zone when we're trying to get started, we might stall our boat, and the wind could then push us into other boats or wash us up on shore. As we approach the dock at the end of our sail, I'll once again ask you to point to the wind because we plan on turning into the wind just before we land at the dock so that we can slow down and stop. Now that we have a grasp on the points of sail and wind awareness, we just need to learn 2 basic maneuvers before we hit the water. Because there is a no-go zone, sailboats can't sail directly into the wind and must sail at 45-degree angles to the wind. Therefore, in order to sail to an upwind destination, we must sail in a zigzag pattern at a 45-degree angle, making 90-degree turns every time we zig and zag. This is called beating or sailing on a beat. It's called tacking when we turn through the wind. Prior to each tack, we'll first make sure everyone is ready because the boom that is attached to the bottom of the mainsail is going to swing through the cockpit when we turn through the wind. If the boat has a jib or genoa, which is the smaller sail just forward of the mainsail, we'll also need to release the sheet securing that sail and pull in the opposite sheet when the boat turns through the wind and secure that opposite sheet when the turn is complete. First, the helmsman will ask the crew if they are ready, then initiate the tack into the wind by smoothly pushing the tiller away from the wind. The helmsman will steer 90 degrees through the wind, and the crew will duck and move to the opposite side of the boat to help keep the boat flat. The helmsman will stop turning when the boom swings all the way through to the other side of the boat. Another way to help keep the boat flat is to let out the sails, which depowers the sails and helps flatten the boat. When sailing downwind, we turn through the wind by jibing through the wind. Like a tack, the boom swings through the boat during the jibe, so we always want to make sure that everyone is ready before we initiate the turn. The crew will duck and move to the opposite side of the boat to keep the boat flat and in control. The helmsman will stop turning when the boom swings all the way through to the other side of the boat. Sharing the water responsibly with other boats is something we all have to do. Just like on the roadways, boaters follow rules of the road that help vessels avoid collisions. Before you skipper any vessel without supervision, I highly recommend you take a government-approved boater safety course. These courses will cover the rules of the road and other boater safety topics in depth. I'm just going to scratch the surface in this video. For now, keep in mind when 2 vessels approach each other, there is a giveaway vessel and a stand-on vessel. The giveaway vessel must act as if the stand-on vessel has the right to keep going the way that it's going. The stand-on vessel must acknowledge the intended actions of the giveaway vessel and maintain course and speed until the giveaway vessel passes. A sailboat is required to give way to commercial vessels, while recreational motorboats are expected to give way to sailboats under sail. The rules of the road are meant to help avoid collisions and not determine fault. It's everyone's responsibility to pay attention and avoid collisions. Again, I'm going to ask you to point at the wind when we interact with other sailboats on the water. Where is the wind coming from? Is the wind coming over the right side of our boat or the left side of our boat? If the wind is coming over the left side of our boat, we are sailing on a port tack. The purple boat here is sailing on a port tack. Remember, both left and port are four-letter words. If the wind is coming over the right side of the boat, we are sailing on a starboard tack. The scarlet boat here is on a starboard tack. So which boat is the right-of-way boat? When two vessels are both under sail and they approach each other on opposite tacks, the port tack boat must give way to the starboard tack boat. The purple boat in this animation is sailing on port tack and must give way to the scarlet boat, which is sailing on starboard tack. What happens when boats are sailing on the same tack? Here, the wind is coming over the right side of both boats, so they are sailing on the same tack. When two vessels under sail are sailing on the same tack, the windward boat shall give way to the leeward boat. In other words, the boat closer to the wind shall give way to the boat further from the wind. The white boat is closer to the wind and is therefore the windward boat. The white boat in this animation is the windward boat and must give way to the lime boat, which is the leeward boat. An experienced skipper will know the rules of the road and get everyone back to dock without incident. You aren't expected to be proficient in the rules of the road your first time out. But as you approach other vessels in the sailing area, try and identify which boat is the giveaway boat and which boat is the stand-on vessel, and see if your skipper agrees with you. You now have a grasp on the points of sail and generally understand how to tack and jibe. Your skipper has a firm grasp on the rules of the road, and you understand that one boat has to give way to the other. So are you ready to take the helm your first time out? Damn right you are. As long as it's not too windy, everyone on the boat will get a chance to drive. Unless your boat has a steering wheel, we steer a sailboat by pushing on the tiller in the opposite direction, and we stop steering by centering that tiller. If you're sailing with me, we'll start you off on a beam reach or 9 o'clock to the wind, so we're sailing on starboard tack. Port tack boats will have to keep clear of us, and you're least likely to accidentally turn through the wind at this point of sail. The boat you are sailing will most likely have a tiller. In this example, we are using a tiller extension so that we can sit forward in the boat. Once you're proficient, you will steer with one hand on the tiller and control the mainsail with your other hand. But for your first time out, someone else will handle the mainsail so you can focus on steering. Developing good habits is easier than breaking bad habits, so I'm going to keep reminding you to sit forward in the boat and hold the tiller extension like a microphone out in front of you as you steer with one hand. It will feel uncomfortable at first because you're not used to it, but try to resist the temptation to slide back in the boat or use two hands to steer. If you make a conscious effort to hold the tiller extension correctly and sit forward so you're not preventing the tiller from moving from side to side, you'll quickly develop your tiller handling skills and it'll soon feel natural to you with more time on the tiller. If you ever panic, just remember, tiller towards trouble, because pushing the tiller in that direction will cause the boat to steer in the opposite direction. After a few tacks and jibes, you'll develop a more comfortable feel for the boat you are sailing. If you understand the basic concepts, can locate the wind, adjust your sails, even if not perfectly, know how to stop the boat, and have someone on board who understands the rules of the road, you can pretty much sail from point A to point B. After watching this video and a quality session with an experienced skipper showing you the ropes, you're pretty much a sailor. It obviously takes a few sessions to become proficient and to get to the point where you can maybe skipper a boat, but don't underestimate how far you can come in just one session. Before we conclude this video, I want to tell you what you should bring and go over a few safety items. Please keep in mind that 2/3 of all drowning victims were good swimmers, and 87% of those drowning victims were not wearing a life jacket. Stay protected from the sun, so bring a hat, sunglasses, and sunscreen. Always check the weather and check your email and text messages before you make the drive. If the wind is projected to be extremely light or blowing in the upper teens, we might want to reschedule. Always check the weather again when you arrive at the sailing club, as things can pop up unexpectedly. On heavier wind days, gloves can come in really handy, and any lightweight gloves will do. Wear closed-toed shoes so you don't hurt your toes trying to figure out your footwork. Before you board the boat, ask permission as a courtesy to make sure they are ready for you. When stepping onto the boat, step onto the middle of the boat where it's most stable and maintain 3 points of contact. Keep your arms and legs inside the boat at the dock at all times. Only step off to catch the boat during a landing if you can comfortably do so. If the boat is going too fast, we'll bail out and make another pass. If we're going too slow, instead of making a big jump, we can just make another pass. Here is a fellow instructor who almost got crushed by an 850-pound boat because he was trying to do a little too much with a new sailor. Thankfully, it was only a close call and everyone was okay. We are out here to have fun, so there is no need to risk bodily injury or boat damage, and there's absolutely no shame in being conservative and taking another pass when trying to land at the dock. We can prevent the boat from heeling abruptly and keep the boat flat by steering into the wind or releasing the sheets or ropes that are controlling the sails. If the boat heels abruptly, just remember, when in doubt, let out. If you don't let out fast enough and the sailboat capsizes, first make sure everyone is okay and then quickly swim to the mast to make sure the mast doesn't sink. Your skipper will give you more instructions at the top of the mast should that happen. Be sure to watch my capsize video if you want to watch us write a capsized Flying Scot step by step. If the thought of capsizing or getting wet makes you uncomfortable, keep in mind that sailing in higher wind conditions on a boat that is prone to capsizing is completely optional. Larger keel boats are more stable and smaller sport boats are more tippy. If you happen to see a big puff of wind coming towards you out on the water, let your boatmates know so that it doesn't take you by surprise. I have a general rule on my boat. If you're not having fun or you're not comfortable for any reason, just say so and we'll take you back to the dock, no questions asked. Please don't be shy about that. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe. When I'm at the sailing club, I want everyone to spend more quality time on a sailboat and less time in a classroom. So thanks for watching this video. I recommend watching this video one more time before your first session. If you want to jump ahead, I'm not going to discourage you, but just don't forget the immediate goal is for you to have a fun time your first time out. I do offer free Part 1 certification at sailboatinstructor.com. You've already watched the video, so all you have to do to get your certificate is to register and take a short quiz. I hope to see you at the dock.